The message from my father arrived without warning, one short line that carried the weight of 3 decades. We're done. Speak to my attorney from now on. No explanation. No hesitation. Just exile packaged inside a cold sentence. I was standing in my kitchen in Denver when it happened, the overhead light humming faintly as if even the room sensed something was breaking. My phone vibrated once, then went still, leaving a strange, hollow quiet around me. For a moment, I simply stared at the message, waiting for some follow-up, some clarification. None came. I typed a single word back, steady, calm, final. All right. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Something inside me simply settled. As if this moment had been approaching for years and I was only now catching up to it. I set the phone on the counter and opened my laptop. A quiet decision took shape inside me, one that would unravel every carefully constructed illusion my family had built. Growing up in our Glendale house felt like living inside a simmering pot. My father, Graham, ruled the home with a preference for low voices and low emotions, the kind of man who believed control was a virtue and affection a distraction. My stepmother, Lorraine, insisted the house be spotless, the kind of spotless that made you nervous to breathe. My older brother, Ethan, walked through each room the way some people walk through hotel lobbies, relaxed, entitled, certain everything was built for his comfort. Me? I learned young how to shrink myself. I became the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who stayed quiet to keep the peace. If Ethan forgot something, I fixed it. If a bill was missed, I covered it. If Graham's temper flared, somehow I always ended up being the one blamed for triggering it. Distance didn't save me. When I left for college, I thought space would untangle the knots in our family. Instead, it only taught them how to lean on me from farther away. I became the daughter who mailed money home, who paid temporary bills that became permanent, who patched the holes no one else bothered to repair. 4 years ago, Graham called me in tears, something I had never witnessed in my entire life. He said the house was about to be repossessed. He said Ethan had disappointed him. He said Lorraine was sick with worry. And then he said the sentence that hooked into me like a fishhook. You're the only one I can depend on. That was all it took. I stepped in. And kept stepping in. Month after month. Year after year. Until helping them felt less like generosity and more like obligation carved into my bones. But all of that began to crack the night I received a video message from my uncle, a clip I was never meant to see. What was in that video didn't just explain my father's text. It detonated the truth I had avoided all my life. Before we continue the story, please tell me in the comments what's your name and where you are listening from, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel for such amazing content. Because when I finally pressed play on that video, I discovered exactly what my family really thought of me. The thumbnail of the video alone made my stomach tighten, a blurry shot of my family gathered around the old oak dining table in Glendale. The same table where I had done homework, eaten birthday dinners, and listened to arguments disguised as family discussions. The chipped corner was still there, the one Ethan carved his initials into when he was 12 and somehow convinced everyone it was my fault. I hesitated for a breath, then pressed play. The camera shook slightly, my uncle must have been holding his phone casually. The room looked brighter than I remembered, the chandelier above them casting a harsh white glow that washed out every flaw. They looked relaxed. Comfortable. Unfiltered in the way people only behave when they believe no one outside their circle is watching. Then I heard my father's voice. That girl isn't a daughter, Graham said with a satisfied laugh. She's a paycheck with legs. The room burst into laughter. Real, full-bodied laughter. The kind people share over inside jokes and fond memories. Except the joke was me. I froze. Lorraine leaned forward, waving her hand as if she were scolding him, but her smile was wide enough to show teeth. Oh, Graham, stop. Let her think she's useful. It keeps her busy. Ethan chimed in next, tone casual, almost bored. Honestly, Dad, she embarrasses herself. Always justifying why she sends money like she's proud of it. He snorted. Pathetic. Another wave of laughter. My chest tightened, not from shock, but from recognition. It was the way they laughed. The ease. The comfort. The certainty that I would never hear any of this. Because in their minds, I was predictable. Desperate. Willing to crawl for scraps of affection. Too loyal to ever walk away. I watched Graham raise his glass toward the camera. To my personal bank account, he said, chuckling. May she never run dry. Glasses clinked. Something in me fractured, but not in the way I expected. I didn't collapse. I didn't storm around my apartment or break down in tears. I felt awake. For the first time, I replayed the video not to confirm what they said, but to study them, their faces, their body language, their unbothered expressions. This wasn't a moment of weakness or frustration. This was who they were when I wasn't there. This was the truth behind every "we're so grateful," every "just until things get better," every "your family, you're supposed to help." I set my phone down and stepped onto my balcony. The Denver night air sliced through the quiet like a blade. Cold, sharp, clarifying. The city lights flickered, distant and indifferent. Everything suddenly made sense, the tone in my father's recent messages, the guilt-laced remarks from Lorraine, the constant financial emergencies Ethan miraculously developed right before every paycheck. They weren't struggling. They weren't grateful. They were entitled. And they were planning. I walked back inside just as another notification buzzed on my screen. I picked up my phone, expecting more family chatter. It was a text from my father. The same one I had already seen. We're done. Speak to my attorney. But now, with the video fresh in my mind, the message felt different. It felt like a strategy. They were trying to cut me off before I could expose them. They thought they were still in control. They weren't. Because the moment I typed my calm reply, "All right," I had no idea how completely everything in their world was about to fall apart. After sending my one-word reply, I placed the phone face down on the counter and opened my laptop again. The silence in my apartment felt strangely clean, almost weightless, nothing like the tense, punishing silence I grew up with. Back then, silence meant danger. Here, it meant clarity. If my father wanted everything handled through his attorney, then he was about to get exactly what he asked for. I logged into my bank accounts first. The screen took a moment to load, the spinning icon pulsing like a heartbeat. When the numbers appeared, my professional instincts, honed from years of auditing other people's chaos, kicked in. This wasn't emotional anymore. It was systematic. Step 1, end the mortgage support. 48 consecutive months of payments, each one made quietly, consistently, fully. My name listed as the sole payer. I hovered over the auto transfer and clicked cancel. A confirmation box popped up. Are you sure? Yes, I murmured. Step 2, stop utilities support. Electricity. Water. Gas. Even the Wi-Fi bill Lorraine insisted she would totally reimburse me for, and never did. Click. Cancel. Confirm. Step 3, eliminate emergency payments. The sudden car trouble Ethan always had right before vacations. The medical situations that always cleared up right after I transferred money. The unexpected fees my father claimed the bank had charged. All of it, gone. Step 4, documentation. If Graham wanted a paper war, he was about to get a dissertation. I opened a blank document and titled it simply, Financial Contributions, for years. Then I began writing. Dates. Amounts. Screenshots. Descriptions. Receipts. Transfers. Every single dollar accounted for. Line after line, month after month, sacrifice after sacrifice, all neatly organized in black and white. Looking at it felt like examining an X-ray of a fracture I'd ignored for years. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Ethan? Are you seriously doing this? Stop panicking and call Dad. I ignored it. Another text. Lorraine. The mortgage is due tomorrow. Fix this before you cause real damage. Delete. Delete. They thought this was a tantrum. They thought everything would snap back to normal once I cooled off. They didn't understand that for the first time in my life, I wasn't acting from fear or guilt. I was acting from truth. By the next morning, the ripple effects had already begun. I logged into the mortgage portal out of habit and saw a red banner across the top. Payment failed, account past due. Instead of anxiety, I felt something else. Relief. It was the first visible fracture in a structure I had carried alone for 4 exhausting years. And it was only the beginning. Because within just 48 hours, their world started collapsing, and their panic was only the first sign. 48 hours after I cut every financial tie, the storm finally hit. It started with a call from Lorraine. My phone vibrated violently on the counter, her name flashing across the screen as if the device itself was panicking. I let it ring until the noise died, then picked it up and calmly placed it on speaker. The moment I answered, her voice exploded through the room. Riley, what have you done? The mortgage payment bounced. The bank contacted your father, they said the transfer was rejected. This is due today. Fix it. I'm not asking. Not a trace of concern. Just entitlement sharpened into command. I took a slow sip of coffee, letting the silence stretch before speaking. Your husband asked me to direct everything through his attorney, I said evenly. So that's what I'm doing. Dead silence. Then a sharp inhale, the sound of someone realizing they're losing control. What attorney? Don't play games with me. Riley, you're being dramatic. The call ended with a click, her panic too loud to maintain conversation. Seconds later, the phone rang again. Then again. Then a stream of messages poured in. Lorraine. You're hurting the family. Do you understand the trouble you're causing? Act like an adult and fix this. I didn't respond. Then Ethan joined in, each message more venomous than the last. Ethan. You've lost your mind. You're sabotaging Dad's life. Get that payment through right now. For years, these words would have twisted painfully inside me. Now they felt small. Because the louder they yelled, the clearer the truth became. They weren't desperate. They were exposed. By noon, the guilt turned into threats. Lorraine. We'll take legal action if you don't reinstate those payments. You won't be welcome here again. As if I had ever truly been welcome. Then something interesting happened. My lawyer called. Riley, she said, barely suppressing a laugh, someone claiming to represent your father sent a complaint accusing you of financial misconduct and demanding that you continue paying immediately. It's not even a legitimate filing. Just pressure tactics. Good. That meant they were scrambling. Perfect timing, I said. Because I need your help with something else. I told her about the years of financial responsibility I'd been carrying, the video my uncle accidentally sent, and the pattern of manipulation that stretched back decades. And then, hesitating only a moment, I told her something I'd never shared with anyone. There have been inconsistencies in his community fund reports for years. I think Graham might be doing more than mismanaging money. She went silent. Then said the words that shifted everything. All right. Then we start digging. And that was the moment the ground beneath my father's feet began to crack. Because once we started digging, we uncovered things far darker than I ever imagined. The investigation started quietly, no dramatic revelations, no instant confirmations. Just slow, methodical unraveling. My lawyer contacted a few trusted colleagues. I combed through old documents, cross-checking schedules, statements, and community fund summaries stored in folders I hadn't opened in years. At first glance, everything looked clean. That was always Graham's talent, keeping the surface polished while the rot hid underneath. But by the second day, the inconsistencies began to appear. Small withdrawals labeled vaguely. Payments that didn't align with meeting minutes. Amounts that grew slightly larger every quarter. Individually, they could have been mistakes. Together, they were a pattern. Every time we uncovered another discrepancy, a strange mixture of anger and relief surged through me. I had spent years believing I was the unstable one, the overreacting one, the ungrateful one. But now the numbers were telling the truth I had never allowed myself to see. Graham wasn't careless. He was calculated. And he had been using me not just to pay his bills, but to cover the gaps he didn't want anyone else to notice. Late one night, while I sat at my dining table surrounded by documents, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, until a trembling whisper leaked through the speaker. "Riley, it's Kara. Your cousin." Her voice was thin, like she was hiding in a closet. "I saw the video," she said, breath shaking. "And I need to tell you something before it eats me alive." I straightened in my chair. What happened? The pause before she answered was long enough to make my heart pound. "When I was 17, she whispered, your dad cornered me at a family barbecue. He grabbed my wrist." I screamed. "Lorraine said I misunderstood him. They made me apologize." Her voice cracked. "I was terrified for years. I thought I imagined the whole thing until I saw how they laughed at you." Her words punched the air out of my lungs. This wasn't just manipulation. This wasn't just financial abuse. My father was dangerous. When the call ended, I sat there frozen, the documents in front of me suddenly looking like pieces of a puzzle I had never realized I was assembling. 2 days later, the final blow came from someone I never expected, Dana, my mother's oldest friend. Her voice was heavy with grief when she called. "Your mom went through hell, Riley," she said. "She never told you how bad it was. He controlled everything, her money, her friendships, her choices. By the time she left, she was a shadow. Something old, something buried deep inside me, splintered. This wasn't a dysfunctional family. It was a cycle of control, generation after generation. And for the first time, I understood that I wasn't just walking away. I was ending it. Because the moment I finally confronted my father was the moment his entire world began to collapse. The confrontation didn't arrive with drama. It arrived with 3 heavy knocks on my apartment door, slow, deliberate, unmistakable. I knew before I opened it. Graham stood in the hallway, shoulders sagging beneath a suit that suddenly looked a size too big. His face, once always tight with control, was gray and drawn, like someone had drained all the certainty out of him. "Riley," he said, voice hoarse. "Please, we need to talk." Not an order this time. Not a demand. A plea. I stepped aside just enough for him to enter. The hallway light sliced across his face, exposing a fear I had never seen on him, not even when I was a child and believed nothing could shake him. He didn't sit. He couldn't. "They're talking about audits," he whispered. "The board. The donors. Everyone's asking questions about the fund. People are spreading rumors." His breathing grew uneven. "Fix this. You're the one who understands the numbers. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them I didn't mean for anything to look wrong." He swallowed hard, eyes shiny. "You're my daughter," he added, voice cracking as if the word itself might save him. For a moment, I simply watched him, letting the silence press in from all sides. It wasn't pity I felt, it was recognition. For decades, I had been the emotional shock absorber of this family, the one who stepped in every time he slipped, stumbled, or failed. But I wasn't his shield anymore. "I have something for you," I said, reaching for the folder on my console table. His eyes followed it like a man watching a guillotine blade descend. I handed him a single sheet, a summary of discrepancies, dates, and anomalies, the same information the board already possessed. He scanned it. His face drained completely of color. "What is this?" he rasped. A record, I said calmly. Of what they know. And what they're investigating. His head jerked up, eyes wide with panic. You did this, he croaked, not a question, but an accusation. No, I replied quietly. You did. He shook his head, gripping the paper so hard it crumpled. Riley, please, he begged. I need your help. You owe me. The word snapped something inside me cleanly, like a dry twig. I don't owe you anything, I said. And you disowned me. Remember? His face broke, raw, genuine desperation bleeding through. But desperation wasn't the same as remorse. I stepped back, letting the distance between us expand. You chose this, I said softly. And then I closed the door. The latch clicking shut was not loud, not dramatic, but it sounded like the final collapse of an empire built on my back. On the other side, I heard one jagged breath from him. Then silence. His world had finally fallen apart. Not because of me. But because I stopped holding it up. Because once word of the investigation spread, the downfall of my family happened faster than any of us expected. The fallout began quietly, then spread like wildfire. Within a week of Graham's unexpected visit, the Community Fund Board initiated a formal internal review. What started as routine clarification quickly escalated into something far more serious. Meetings were held behind closed doors. Emails were exchanged with subject lines like urgent and requires immediate attention. People who once praised my father suddenly avoided eye contact in hallways. Reputations crumble fast when built on borrowed stability. My lawyer forwarded me updates as they came in. Several donors have requested full transparency. The board wants clarification on multiple entries. There are whispers of misappropriation. Every message confirmed what I already knew. Graham's carefully curated image was cracking, and this time, no amount of charm or manipulation could glue it back together. Meanwhile, Ethan took to social media like a wounded animal lashing out. He posted rants blaming jealous relatives, calling the investigation unfair, insisting the board was overreacting. But every post only drew more attention. People asked questions. Screenshots spread. Comments piled up. The more he defended Graham, the more guilty they both looked. Lorraine tried a different approach, silence. A quiet retreat. She deleted old posts, avoided neighbors, and stopped attending community events. She tried to pretend nothing was happening, as though hiding would make the truth less visible. But nothing could stop the dominoes from falling. By the end of the month, the Glendale house, their prized possession, their symbol of pride, was officially under foreclosure review. Years of mortgage payments, utilities, and repairs had been balanced entirely on my shoulders. Without me, the structure collapsed instantly. And they finally had to face the reality I had seen years earlier. They weren't managing their lives. I was. While their world spiraled, mine shifted in ways I never anticipated. My boss called me into her office after a major project review. She closed the door gently, looked at me with a thoughtful expression, and said, I don't know what you've been dealing with personally, but your performance has been exceptional. Your clarity under pressure is rare. Then she offered me a promotion, one I had quietly worked toward for years but never thought to ask for. I walked out of her office carrying a title that finally matched the work I'd been doing all along. That night, as I stood on my balcony overlooking Denver, the city lights flickering like scattered constellations, I felt something settle over me, a calm I had never known in my childhood home. For the first time, peace didn't feel like some